If a pantheon of extraordinary gentlemen of this century is ever to be made, Ratan Tata's name will always find its positioning on the pedestal. He was an extraordinary human being who touched millions of lives. At the peak of Tata Group, he was heading 30 companies which were present in 100 countries. He was himself never a billionaire, but made several investors who invested in Tata Group of companies individual billionaires. It is my pleasure and my honor to remember Ratan Tata on his birthday and to take his legacy forward. To talk about what made Ratan Tata the real Ratan of India, I have with me a very special guest, Mr. Suhel Seth, Ratan Tata's friend, confidant, and someone to advise Ratan Tata during the twists and turns of his career. So nice to have you on ET Now. Thank you for joining us.
Lovely to be here, Nikunj, and I'm so touched that someone as formidable as you in your field has taken not only the trouble, but has remembered to pay homage to Ratan Tata on his birthday, the first birthday when he won't physically be with us, but obviously in spirit he will live on.
What was your association with Ratan Tata? When did you meet him first?
So I first met him in 1990 in Jamshedpur, and he wasn't then the chairman of Tata Sons. And then the relationship grew. As you remember, there were issues in 1992 between Rusi Modi and the House of Tata. It wasn't with Mr. Tata. And what I observed about Ratan Tata was there was a firmness without malice. There was a stubbornness without arrogance. And he was the kind of person who was coming into his own. But it wasn't as if anything in his personal life had changed. And to his dying day, he remained that man. He remained stubborn because of his convictions. He remained formidable because of his courage. And he remained compassionate because of his humanism. And as you rightly said, you know, the group was 30 companies. Today it's probably 142 companies. And nothing in the man changed. His avowed belief, his principles, his love for nation. You know, that was a remarkable trait to see in Ratan Tata. There was almost, it was a parallel track. One was, he was the custodian of the House of Tata. A house which is now, Tata Sons is over 155 years old. Then he became the chairman of Tata Trust when he demitted office on December 28, 2012. And all through Nikunj, the one thing you saw about Ratan Tata was he was a normal man leading an extraordinary life, but never fussing about it. There was never anything. You know, and you've said it well. A man is known not by the company he keeps, but by how he keeps that company, by how he looks after his people, by how he treats people in a manner that they want to give their lives for him. So I told a foreign channel on the day Mr. Tata died, and I said, you know, no Indian is saying that a rich man has died. But every Indian is saying a good man has died. The people who were there at the NCPA paying tribute to his body, people who were there at the funeral, they didn't know Ratan Tata. They never met him. I mean, 90% of them never met him. But everyone had a relationship with him. That is godlike.
You know, I've had the pleasure of interacting with him as being member of the press, and every time I would meet him, it would be a very, very joyful learning experience for all of us. You know, as a young cub reporter, he would always tell me that always focus on integrity, always focus on doing good for others, and always remember that when you are negotiating, always think about others. So if you really look at not Ratan Tata, the chairman of Tata Sons, but Ratan Tata, the individual, he's changed billions of, he's just touched billions of Indians.
And you know, there's business and beyond business. The one thing Mr. Tata always hated was the phrase CSR. You know, he said it's not corporate social responsibility. It's community engagement. And in everything he did. Today, let me tell you, Nikunj, if India is relatively safer qua cancer, it's because of Ratan Tata. If many of our women, rural folk are involved with the digital economy, it's because of Ratan Tata. So he's touched lives in a million ways. But the sterling quality is what he did with the voiceless. And you know, my wife and I are dog lovers. We have 9 dogs. Ratan Tata was a dog lover. I've mentioned that story to you in private.
Yeah.
You know, he was being awarded the Lifetime Achievement Award by Prince Charles, who was then Prince Charles. And the function was in the 8th of February at Buckingham Palace. And Prince Charles had invited the who's who from the world, forget England or India. And on the 3rd of February, I land at Heathrow, and there are missed calls from Mr. Tata. So he says, I have some bad news. I can't come to London. I said, why? I said, are you unwell? He says, no, Tito's unwell. And he's saying, if Tito is unwell, and if I don't look after him, the psychological affliction will then fall on Tango. And I said, what do I do? He says, will you explain it to Prince Charles? That evening, I go to Clarence's house, and I tell Prince Charles, he said, this is what's happened. And he looks at me. He's saying, you know, that's a man. And then jokingly said, Mummy will be so happy, because the Queen was such a great dog lover.
Yes.
Now, you tell me, how many people think of the voiceless? How many people, and here I have to salute and pay tribute even to N. Chandrasekharan. Because when Chandra decided, and rightfully so, to refurbish, redevelop Bombay House,
Yes.
what was the first question Ratan asked him, which Chandra wrote about so eloquently, where he says, where will the dogs go? So, you know, there are interesting stories of Goa. I'll tell you, Goa would leave Bombay House every morning at about 8:30, 8:45, come to Elphinstone House and wait by the elevator. And then Mr. Tata and he would get into the elevator, and by Mr. Tata's side, on the side sofa, there was a cloth on which Goa would sit. Who does that? Did Ratan Tata need to impress anyone? The answer is no. Had he already achieved a certain stature? The answer is yes. But when your beliefs are so strong, when your conviction is so solid, then it's not you're doing it for yourself, for others. That's who you are, that's your DNA. And that DNA is special. And that DNA will be undying. You know, hum sab jante hain, it's written in our Shastras. When Arjun asks Krishna that, why am I going to war? Krishna takes it to a different level and he says, look, the body evolves, it goes through development, it goes through cycles, but the soul is unending, the soul never dies. And that's why we are blessed. We are blessed with the soul of Ratan Tata alive in each Indian. Actually, each person whose lives he has touched. I've often joked about it, but I'm serious when I say it. Ratan Tata was actually India's brand ambassador. He was the statesman that everyone loved and everyone knew. Whether it was presidents, whether it was heads of state. You should have seen the relationship he had with Henry Kissinger. I mean, you know, at that level, when you're operating and you still care about a dog getting drenched in the Mumbai monsoon, it shows what a human being you are. When you attend every funeral, no matter whether the people were killed at Taj Mahal Hotel or whether they were killed in Chabad House, post 26/11, that shows your humanism. You don't need to do it.
The story of Nano that he saw a couple getting drenched, and that really gave him
With
the
their
idea.
child.
Yes. That really gave him an idea that I need to do something to ensure that no man and a woman and a child are getting drenched in the next month.
Absolutely. And what was sad is that I think at that point in time, many of his colleagues let him down because we should have never marketed it as the cheapest car. It should have always been marketed like the Volkswagen Beetle was, when that ad was small as big. The Nano actually, Nikunj, was an interesting car. I remember a lot of people wanting the Nano. And then you know what happened. I mean, you know this better than I do in terms of, competitive pressures, reports, plants in the media, in some sections of the media. And R&T saw that, but he never gave up. Look at the joy he had when Indica was launched. So I'm saying, if you actually pull back and see his contribution, was he under pressure to appoint a Parsi as chairman of Tata Sons? I'm sure he was. Was he under pressure to appoint a family member? I'm sure he was. Who does he appoint? A person who has a proven track record. Who, by the way, from 2017 February till now, has established that he is the right man for the job.
Yeah, I mean, just look at the market cap of all Tata group of companies today. Indian Hotel to Tata Consumer to TCS to, just about every Tata company now is in the top quartile in terms of perception, market cap and rewarding shareholders.
Absolutely. I mean, and look at the people Mr. Tata used to surround himself with. They were people who were, I always joke that some of them were insane. Insane means insanely delightful. A very little known fact of Mr. Tata is he was a great prankster. He would love playing a prank.
Yeah, I've heard about this.
So once, Hormuz Sarabji, and whenever Hormuz would call me, there was an expletive that I would use in reply. Hormuz called me from his phone, but actually it was Mr. Tata on the other side. And I was so embarrassed. But Mr. Tata loved this. And he laughed and laughed and laughed. His close friend, who's today one of the executors of the will, Melli Mistry, who's one of my dearest friends, who I often say, he's insane. We call him the mysterious mystery. No angle, except to serve. And that is what, Nikunj, I think Ratan Tata brought to life.
What was life for Ratan Tata after 2012 when he really stepped down from the day-to-day governing of Tata Sons and Tata Group of companies? How did he change?
He didn't.
Okay.
And I think it's very interesting that you've asked this question. So December 28, 2012, Cyrus Mistry took over. And I had, in a newspaper called the Financial Times, given an interview saying, personally, because of my association with the House of Tata, I'm worried. Because of, a real estate building contractor, they'll cut corners, value systems, blah, blah, blah. And Mr. Tata didn't admonish me. He didn't say anything. He just smiled because Cyrus complained to him saying, see what he says, no one can control Suhel. But the process of anguish had begun. Let me tell you, Ratan Tata the board appointed Cyrus Mistry as chairman designate in 2011. Mr. Tata gave him all the freedom that he wanted, gave him all the respect he wanted. Do you know something? It's very interesting that you've asked this question. From December 28, 2012 to October 24, Monday, 2016, Ratan Tata never entered Bombay House, even though he was chairman emeritus.
Oh, I didn't know this.
Never.
Okay.
Because the phrase Ratan Tata would always use, I want Cyrus Mistry to be his own man. Why did the anguish begin? The anguish began because there was a feeling, and which has been proven in subsequent actions, there was a feeling that the value architecture of the House of Tata was being fiddled with. The supremacy of boards was being destroyed by this 4-member committee that Cyrus had created. And you saw what happened after October 24. On the morning of October 25, the media gets a 9-page email which couldn't have been written in 8 hours. So there was a plan. There was a plan to scuttle. There was a plan in my mind. I'm not speaking on behalf of the Tatas. I'm just telling you what I felt and what I saw. And I remember it was on ET Now, I think, or certainly Times Now, on the evening of Monday, October 24, when I said, I'm as a normal human being, as an Indian, I feel relieved that the group is back in Ratan Tata's hands. And what did Ratan Tata do? The letter that he sent to the Prime Minister said in that I will remain interim chairman for 6 months. He took over on October 24, 2016 and demitted office on February 12 or 13 of 2017. He needn't have. He could have stayed on. So all the nonsense that people were spewing, saying that, oh, he wanted to retain control. Never. But that anguish, the personal scurrilous attacks took their toll. But what did he do? Nothing. Did he ever utter a word against Cyrus publicly? Never.
Nothing in media, nothing ever.
I did a 1-hour interview, television interview, which was his last conversation, which had nothing to do with business. It was all about humanity, India, Indianness, philanthropy. Not once did we even mention Cyrus. That was the level of the man's grace. And he never. There was no retribution. There was no malice. So a lot of people must recognize that he came from a position of hope, and then he went into despair with the way the group was being treated, the way the group was being managed. And that, to my mind, so everyone asks me, what did you... I said, ultimately, we are all destiny's children. And destiny's played it out so well. I mean, if Cyrus hadn't left, we wouldn't have had a Chandra. And the reason why we are happy with a Chandra, and no one to be happy, but the reason why the group is doing well under Chandra is the values of the group are aligned with the business objectives of the group.
The brand is scaling up. The focus on really creating value for shareholders, that indeed is making a comeback, and always use market for benchmarking purposes. The market caps are soaring, which clearly means that the group, in a sense, is in high growth mode. All the companies on the Chandra, you can actually see that they've
without
really come
sacrificing.
Back on top. Exactly.
And without getting outsiders to do the job. See, the beauty about Chandra has been that he, being a Tata lifer, has understood that all you need to do is empower, and then they will be self-powered. And we are seeing this today.
This is the only corporate group, Suhel, which I think from steel to aircraft, from fashion to computer, from semiconductor to telecom, I can bet that there is no other global parallel in the world with this kind of diversification and with this kind of diversity.
But he didn't like the boilerplate that a lot of the media would use. They would say, the Tata Group from salt to software. And he says, but what about all our other businesses?
What happens to the Tata Group now that you don't have a Tata at the helm? Noel is there, but it was Ratan Tata, who in a sense from last 30 years in a sense was really ensuring that the legacy goes forward. What happens now?
You might think I'm delusional or I'm being over-emotional, but you enter Bombay House, and you've done it more times than most people have. There's a serenity. There's a sukoon, jo Hindi mein hum kehte hain. But there's also, you're entering an office where good people work. When you stay at the Taj, you know that there are good people. They'll take care of you like they did on 26/11. I mean, you know what happened. Paul Polman was the CEO of Unilever, and they were all rescued. And you know what they did? They came back for a reverse dinner by the poolside, where the Unilever board served every member of the Taj family who had saved their lives. Where will you get these stories of courage and hope, of compassion and, unbridled elements of service? You won't get that in India. So you're right, the corporate group is different because it was not conceived as a corporate group. I've always said, we may have articles of association to satisfy some ROC, but actually the House of Tata has been built on articles of faith.
So, well, what we don't really appreciate is, and I look at corporate India, during peak of COVID, the hospitality sector went through a rough time and a terrible time. The Tatas ensured that not even a single employee of Indian hotel was ever let go.
No one knows this, but I'm going to say this today on your show. There was a particular hotel JV partner of the Tajes who decided to retrench people. And the message sent by Mr. Tata was, if even one person is terminated, we will terminate the JV.
This was after COVID.
During COVID. But now let me tell you, which is a very famous line of Ratan Tata's. When Singur happened and Mamata Banerjee played dirty politics and has ruined Bengal to this day, Ratan Tata made a comment. He says, I'm that kind of person that I will stand rooted. You take out your gun, you either shoot me or you walk away, but I will not change. What happened with Singur? I still remember, and it's published, so it's not that I'm saying this just because it's fashionable. September end of 2008, because Modi was a briefing client and I had gone to have dinner with him in Gandhinagar. And he says, Suhel bhai, kal kahan ja rahe hain? I said, Bombay. He says, Ratan Tata ko boliye, ab Singur se to bahar ho gaye hain. Gujarat mein aa jaye. And then laughingly Modi said, he said, unko ye bhi keh dijiyega that when the Parsis came to India first, they came to Navsari.
Yes, so true, so true.
That is why the relationship, the respect that Modi had for Mr. Tata was unparalleled. The respect that even Rahul Gandhi has, the Gandhi family had. And this is not about because he is who he is. And as you said in your opening remarks, it's not about whether he was or wasn't a billionaire. The question was he a devout nationalist? The answer is yes. Was he a patriot with a heart? The answer is yes. Did he believe in Indianness? The answer is yes. But most importantly, he believed in every Indian.
So true, so true. We both have young children. So if you have to really share something as a takeaway from Mr. Ratan Tata's legacy, what would you advise my son and your daughter?
Just be good people.
That is what life is all about.
Goodness outlasts wealth. Goodness outlasts age, and goodness outlasts malice. If you're an essentially a good human being, you will be misunderstood. That's the nature of the beast. You will not always be popular. You don't need to be. But goodness allows you to do one thing. It allows you to sleep well at night.
And so, I just want to bring our viewers' attention to the fact that even after 2012, when he stepped down from his executive role, he was betting and identifying and perhaps encouraging the entrepreneurs.
See what he did with R&D investments.
Exactly. Ola, a clear example.
Absolutely.
There are several companies and several startups where he invested them, not because he wanted the money or the capital, because he wanted to encourage that startup culture which was building up.
Why would he invest in an Ola when it is in the general domain of automotive? At that time, but he did. And he always believed that R&D investments would invest a small amount of money, but what it would ensure is the respect, the validation for that particular startup, which would allow it to get more money at a greater value.
And so that time India was just about testing waters when it comes to startup. If I take the clock back 15 years ago, startup was a very, it was not like occupying the center stage.
Correct.
Today it's fashionable to say, okay, mera startup hai. 15 years ago, startup was high risk. And that time if somebody, when Ratan Tata himself was in a sense mentoring these startup entrepreneurs, it was his commitment towards the new India.
Absolutely. And you've raised an important thing. Let's see what else did he do for Brand India. When the Tata endowment was set up and the Tata Hall was created at Harvard, a lot of people said, oh, but you could have invested that money in India. What does it do? The whole world congregates for academic purposes at Harvard Business School, and you have a Tata Hall. You should hear people who from India, from England, from America itself, who are going there for executive development programs, for the AMP, for the OPM, they will all tell you, wow, yeah, we didn't know this about India. It was not the Ratan Tata Hall, it was the Tata Hall. And the reason was to establish Brand India as a serious contender at the global high table of industry, philanthropy, and just general compassion.
So if I wrap this show by saying that the Tatas are one of the oldest corporate groups in the world, but Ratan Tata has ensured that it remains the most vibrant and the youngest corporate group. Because the businesses where they've
Absolutely.
invested in versus where they're investing, from AI to semiconductor to new energy, it may be the oldest corporate group, but it is young and it is really future ready.
I think no one could have summed it better. For me, Ratan Tata, apart from being an outstanding humanist, was perhaps the youngest man I'd ever met.
So, well, such a pleasure to have you, Nitina. Thank you for joining
you
us.
so
We are
much.
remembering legacy of a great man, and we are not remembering him, but we are perhaps celebrating his life
Absolutely.
on his birthday. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you
Nitina.
so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.